Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into tonight's terrifying story, smash that subscribe button and become part of our fearless horror family. Because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. We're dying to know. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and who knows? Your hometown could inspire our next nightmare. So subscribe now and let the haunting begin. My name is Liam. I live in Beijing with my family, and I work in a bustling tech company that keeps me busy most days. On this chilly autumn evening, the air was filled with the scent of fallen leaves and a touch of wood smoke. A light mist hung over the streets. As I rushed to catch the last bus to Fragrant Hills, my mind was filled with thoughts of the busy work week ahead. I arrived at the bus stop just in time to see the familiar 302 bus waiting at the curb, its headlights shining in the dimming light. I swiped my transit card and quickly got on, nodding at the driver. The bus was dark and mostly empty, with just a few passengers in the seats, creating an uneasy feeling. I chose a seat at the back, letting the bus's movement relax me as we started our journey. However, my peace didn't last long. I saw two men waving wildly at the bus from the side of the road. The driver hesitated, unsure whether to follow the rules or help the men. After thinking for a moment, he decided to stop and let them get on. The men climbed aboard, their long flowing robes billowing behind them. At first, I thought they were actors, perhaps on their way to a costume party. But as they moved down the aisle, I was struck by their unnaturally pale skin, which seemed to glow under the harsh fluorescent lights. I realized there were three men, with the third one's long, messy hair hiding his face. They sat across from me, ignoring the other passengers' looks. A heavy silence filled the bus, and the tension was thick. The driver tried to make us laugh by saying the men looked like actors who missed their cues, but his joke didn't help the growing fear. As we journeyed further into the outskirts of the city, familiar landmarks gave way to darker, less populated areas. One by one, passengers disembarked until only a few of us remained, myself, an elderly woman near the front, and the three robed figures. Suddenly, the old woman stood up, her face twisted in anger.
"Thief! That young man stole my wallet!"
She yelled, pointing her finger at me. Shocked and confused, I protested my innocence. "What are you talking about? I didn't take anything," but the woman was adamant, her voice rising above the low hum of the bus.
You must stop. We need to go to the police station.
Despite my protests, the driver complied, pulling over to the side of the deserted road. The old woman grabbed my arm and nearly pulled me off the bus. When we stepped into the cool night air, I felt very uneasy. The bus drove away, leaving us alone in the dark. "What are you doing?" I asked, confused. "There's no police station here, and that was the last bus of the night." To my surprise, her attitude changed completely. The anger faded, and a grim satisfaction took its place.
I just saved your life, young man.
She said quietly. "What are you talking about?" I asked, still in disbelief. Her eyes darted nervously, scanning the empty street.
Those men on the bus, they weren't human.
I scoffed, trying to dismiss her words, but she continued urgently.
I saw them when the wind blew their robes. They had no feet. They were floating.
A feeling of dread filled my stomach as I remembered how pale they looked and the strange silence around them. Could it be possible? Were they ghosts?
We need to get away from here now,
the old woman said. Just then, the distant rumble of an engine echoed in the night. Headlights appeared around the bend, growing brighter as they approached. For a moment, I felt relief. Perhaps another bus or a late-night taxi that could take us to safety. But as the vehicle drew closer, dread settled in my stomach. It was our bus, the 302, returning to where it had left us. Through the windshield, I could see the driver's pale, expressionless face. Behind him, the three robed figures stared, their eyes now glowing with an otherworldly light.
"Run!"
The old woman yelled, and we took off into the night, leaving the road behind us. We ran until our lungs burned, finally collapsing into small copse of trees. As we caught our breath, I turned to her, confusion still clouding my thoughts. What just happened? I gasped. She shook her head, her eyes wide with fear.
An old legend.
She said,
The Ghost Bus of Beijing. It appears on nights like this, picking up unsuspecting passengers and taking them elsewhere.
But why did you save me? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice.
I've heard the stories. I knew what to look for. When I saw those men board, I knew we had to get off that bus at any cost.
We sat in silence for a long moment, the gravity of our narrow escape sinking in. Finally, I stood up, offering my hand to the old woman. We should find our way back to the city, I said. It's a long walk, but she nodded, taking my hand. As we set off through the dark woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig made me jump. After what felt like hours of walking, we finally reached the outskirts of Beijing. The first rays of sunlight began to peek over the horizon, and with each step towards the light, the weight of the night slowly began to lift. Thank you for saving me, I said, my heart still racing. The old woman smiled faintly, relief washing over her features.
It's not over yet.
She said, her voice low.
Those who encounter the ghost bus never forget. You will see shadows in the corners of your eyes, hear whispers in the night.
Her words hung heavy in the air as we parted ways. I walked home, the familiar streets now tinged with unease. The events of that night would stay with me forever. In the years that followed, I heard whispers of other encounters with the ghost bus. Stories of missing passengers, of buses found abandoned in reservoirs miles from their routes, of fuel tanks filled with blood instead of gasoline. I never took a late-night bus again. Instead, I told others to watch out for strange passengers on empty routes. In Beijing, when the fog creeps in and the night swallows the streets, you never know where your journey might truly take you, or what might be waiting for you at the end.